When we experience lack of information about an event or a situation, we are going to experience anxiety as a result. Anxiety is basically lack of operational information. The difference between the logical rational sphere and the emotional sphere. Whatever the logical rational sphere rejects, the emotional sphere really likes. Whatever triggers the logical rational mind is going to be a favorable stimulation for the emotional sphere. If I can trigger you emotionally, I can exert a certain level of control over your emotions. The minute you start introducing doubt, that's when symbolically the serpent creeps in. Doubt is going to be the primary weapon that you can use in your own favor. And we call this a weapon of mass seduction in order to sort of gain the upper hand in any sort of social interactions. If I can get you to undermine your own credibility and validity, there's a seductive element to it. The emotional sphere is actually the primary driver for emotional involvement. The two elements that are of fundamental importance to us are these concepts of reward and punishment. Every time you are communicating with somebody, every time you're interacting with somebody, there are going to be elements and sub-elements in your communication style which either reward or punish, and that generally happens subconsciously, meaning that you're not going to have much conscious control over these elements. If you alternate these cycles of reward and punishment over time, what you're going to have is a very highly conditioned and damaged person. The way you use reward and punishment is going to dictate how much dependency and compliance you get from the other person. The emotional sphere is a lot more powerful than the logical rational sphere. The reason for that is that evolutionarily, that's the way the brain is designed. You need to be able to be much more responsive emotionally as opposed to logically and rationally. In the brain, whatever makes up the logical rational sphere is tiny compared to what makes up the emotional part of the brain. So we're talking about the limbic system, we're talking about the amygdala. These structures have evolved over thousands of years to give you a very fast response to any adverse event or situation. Whereas the logical rational sphere has evolved much more slowly, it's much more recent, and we're talking about neocortex for that reason, and therefore it's a weaker structure. Now, we mainly operate from the logical rational sphere, but actually all the decision making, all the sort of meaning making happens emotionally. We're going to use a very cool symbolic conceptualization. The serpent goes up to Adam and Eve, and they're actually in this place called Garden of Eden. Now, they're in total bliss, okay? Nothing is lacking. And a very successful manipulation is going to be based on making you think that you actually lack something even if you don't. That's exactly what the serpent does with Eve. There's a very famous Latin rendition of this, which is eretis sicut Dei, which means you'll be as gods. The serpent is getting Eve and Adam to focus on what's lacking. And this is going to be really important when it comes to emotional manipulation. Control is a dynamic process. That means that there's going to be a lot of changing, there's going to be a lot of back and forth, and any communication, any interaction that you have with somebody else, especially when there's somebody that you've invested emotionally in, what you're going to experience is massive amounts of anxiety, because at this point you lack operational information. Now, we know that one of the ways that we increase control and a sense of self-control in sort of social dynamics is what we call the principle of least interest. Whoever has got the least interest in continuing any interaction is the one that comes up with the upper hand. So long as you can come across as if you don't really give a flying crap about what's going to happen, you're going to come out a winner, and the other person is going to come out a loser. So once you develop this sense of awareness, you can actually manipulate the interaction in a way that's conducive to you coming out as having the upper hand and the other person losing more and more ground.